All right, what is going on, people? You know that sounds the Unfiltered Band, another episode of Unfiltered for Deadline Day Aftermath. And thank you, Unfiltered Band. You can get me at Casey Stern. Jump into our YouTube channel. Very happy to be joined by my guy, Matt Holliday. And let me start here because we'll talk. I want to jump in about Deadline and what it's like to be a part of all that. But on the list of cool things that you have been involved in your life, somewhere after like birth of the children and marriage, like, is there anything that's in that top tier other than the moment you just experienced where you find out that your boy's the first overall pick?
You know, it was pretty exciting to describe, and in a lot of ways, you think something like that would have a lot of build-up, pretty good knowledge that was going to happen, and so the fact that we found out roughly before it was announced made it all the more sort of exhilarating and exciting that was going to happen. And quite frankly, leading up to the last 5 minutes, didn't think it was going to happen. Just because it was going to happen, we'd have heard about it before, sort of 20 seconds before the pick was in. So exciting, emotional, and certainly proud, like you talked about, of put in and to see his excitement and to see your kids, I guess, accomplish goal of that first step in reaching his dream of playing Major League Baseball. You know, it is really, really exciting, and to, my wife and I just plan and really kind of make sure that you enjoy that moment, because it only happens once. Really trying to do so. It was a really cool day for us. Obviously for Jackson, it's pretty exciting to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty special to think about just what that means for like the accomplishments in his life already, right? And how hard he's worked. I know we had talked about you discussing kind of, the pressures of what to expect and all of that. He's in such a small category, right, of guys who have ever been picked number one overall. Was there like a redo of that conversation, or does anything need to be said? I feel like I'm asking a coaching question, but is there a team meeting that needs to happen even more so after you realize it was number one overall, just to make sure that he understands that, hey, look, it's okay to still be a kid somehow in all of this?
Yeah, I actually called everybody together, team meeting. I sent a text out to obviously nowadays to all the family members that went o'clock for a little family, sort of meeting and discussion, and remind everybody that when that, not only the first pick, and we've been a little bit out of the limelight since I quit playing. There's not as much, obviously, attention on our family, and you get picked number one. It's sort of it comes back on to us. You know how Twitter is, and Instagram, and comments, and people, and when you're the sort of good on both, sort of heavy on both sides, people think it's just a reminder to be careful in what you put in your brain and what you're looking at and thinking about, and really for us all to just kind of keep that circle tight, and for Jackson in the hard work and what it takes next, like what's the next step. Okay, so hard and even maybe even harder at what you want to accomplish. So there is that our family that it, as Twitter and it's kind of a so just focus on the things that you can control. Love your people. Just the like a reset of what's important, and for him to get better and enjoy his teammates and enjoy where he's at. And it's great to get to the major leagues and get there fast, but you can't skip steps and you can't miss those relationships. Some of my best favorite moments are from the minor leagues with teammates and moments. So just kind of a reset on what our priorities are.
Yeah, and it's, you think about it, there's so much excitement. It's such a long journey now, right? That's just beginning. So at least you have to stop and smell the roses. As a player, that's hard, right? And look, as a person, it's hard. It doesn't matter what you're doing. We always have stress about something else that's happening next, right? It doesn't matter what it is. when you're in the middle of a season and you get traded, even though, and look, you're a part of trade rumors, it's not a shock. You understand the business.
Mhm.
What's it like finding out that you're going to a new team? Like, we always talk about what it means for the next team, and I want to talk about what that experience is like. But when you first find out that you're now going to a new city, you don't have a place to live there yet, right? How is all that? How much do we, as the human, normal, mortal, not baseball or athlete folk, not understand how much behind the scenes is going on and how much of a support system you need after being traded because of all that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first time is the hardest time. So the first time you get traded, particularly away from an organization that you only knew one. So like, the first organization, that's the only organization teammates you've only ever known. So I think emotionally, that first time you get traded is difficult. This big switch that's going to happen that you don't really know much about or how to comfortable where you're at. You sort of know your role in the team. You've most likely established sort of your leader you are or what your place is in the team dynamic. So that's scary, and the unknown of what that even looks like. And so the first trade from the Rockies, that was sort of, we just gone to the World Series 2 years previous. I came up in the minor leagues. A lot of those guys were my friends since I was, 18 years old. But there is this, sort of, you have to, in your mind, get on to the now what do we do, right? Do we, we just sell our house in Denver? Do we, we start to talk about, so that time we had only had 2 kids, and so you only have sort of them to manage their school, so not that big of a deal. And then, okay, so what's that look like in the Oakland, and where are you going to live? Getting traded the next July to St. Louis and going into your free agent year, okay, well, the next contract, hopefully you get some stability, hopefully you play well enough that you can get, and you sort of set up shop for a good chunk of time. And I was lucky enough to have that. Some guys get that security of a no trade clause and a long-term contract, but there is a lot that goes into it, and that you don't have as many kids, or they're logistically is not as, but as they get older, and then they're in school, and then the kids sort of have friends, and it can be stressful for the player. It can be, and you're worried about your kids, and you're worried about their happiness, and you're worried about their all the with you, because you play best when you're comfortable, your family's there. So there's a lot that goes in. Like I said, it's always, I think the first time is difficult. The second time, kind of go into, okay, this is what's got to happen. I got to get this. I got to move there. I got to, so you have been through. So I would say, there's a lot that goes into it. It depends on your age, a lot of things, but in general, it is kind of a stressful sort of 3 or 4 day, making sure your people are in the right place, and who's taking the car, or who's driving that out, who's, so there's a lot of things outside of just, I get to go to the next team and what you do, but you're trying to make sure your family is still everything taken care of, and everybody is happy.
You and I have talked about this before, Rich, about how there's not just, we always talk about guys in the last year of a contract and say there's pressure, because there is, like Judge betting on himself and all of that. But when you get the next place and you sign a long-term deal, it's not pressure, but an obligation. They trusted me, right? Mm-hmm. They wanted me. How much of that do you feel when you get traded, like with the other team, when you get there, in terms of gripping the bat in your first ABs, what you feel? Like, is that something that's tangible as a player, even on that plane as you're going over there, that you realize, hey, look, these guys gave up a lot of value and they went out and said, I'm their dude? I mean, is that something you feel as a player?
Yeah,
in terms of pressure?
I think you want to impress them right away, right? You want to go over there and make that really good first impression to your teams that traded for you, to the fans, the first opportunity you get to play a home game. You want to do, you get this reburst of excitement and energy properly. I think as hitters, you want to go out and hit a home run, and you want to, or as pitchers, maybe you come in and you want to throw harder than you've ever thrown. But I think you have to get back to, once you step inside those lines, you just got to be the player and for who you are as a player, and you don't have to be more than that. You get through it, I think, in a couple days. But yeah, like you said, you do feel that it's like, okay, they want me to come in and, in my case, hit behind Albert. So
right, you're like a savior, right? I mean, I'm not trying to
matter.
overrate it, Matty, but you're like a savior, right? You feel like it's something like they picked out that I'm the guy they need to win.
Yeah, and like, with Albert, that they brought me in to protect Albert and to get him more pitches. But at that point in his career, it didn't matter. Ted Williams were hitting behind him. They were probably going to pitch around him. Just have a good at bat. Like, keep it simple. Don't try. You don't have to hit a home run every time. Get a hit or get a walk or have a good at bat. And so sometimes you just have to remind yourself that be somebody you're not. You just got to keep playing your game. Do what's been. They brought you here for a player. Just go out there and keep. It's the same league. It's the same. Just keep excellent. And sometimes that's hard. It really is, because you want to, as human beings, a people pleaser. I wanted to do well because they traded for me. I wanted to do well because you feel that, and sometimes you just have to manage that you put on yourself, or that you really want to do well. And sometimes that can be challenging. And as ball players, you really just have to kind of keep it simple, because we get it.
Is there a tie-in? Is it fair to say, like, when you go back to talking like to Jackson about what he's going to go through, the expectation forget about the fans and the media, and it's different even now. Not that you and I are that old, but back when we were kids, you weren't following whoever then was the Jackson Holliday stats in A-ball. Like, you just weren't doing it, right? It wasn't what we did, right? Nowadays, everybody knows everything. Will that be something that you remind him? Like, you don't got to hit 800 and have an OPS of like 8 billion, and it's okay because you're now going to be at a higher level you've been in. There's going to be that pressure. Is that something that you need to kind of almost remind him? Because he's going to go out there feeling that pressure too, right? Like, I'm supposed to never get out if I'm number one.
Yeah. I think that's something that you want to help him. So one of those things that you have to learn, because, in high school, you do have incredible success, make outs, and you sort of able to come through almost every time. And so to set up those sort of guardrails, or give him as much information but some of that is also experience driven, and how to deal with failure, and how to, and you're confident that if you just keep working the process, that you'll get the results. And so that I want him to understand. But it also goes back to, like, sometimes you got to you can't read Twitter, like you can't read Instagram. Like, you just have to focus on and keep it working hard. Like, I'm doing the right things. The results will come. So, like, even like you said, and Jed Fabian, who just got drafted with Jackson, and he's down in Orioles, he got to play, what they call it now. It used to be the GCL. And he got to play in the game, and they already had outs and a man on second and third in this GCL game that I didn't even know that you could find out. It's like, nowadays, like, people are tweeting about a GCL game that since the end of the college season, and he got his first game action, and so it knew the emphasis and the eyes on prospects been, and they have access to it. It's on TV. It's on, you can find all this. Shit, you couldn't even get it on the radio. Like, my parents, they couldn't get it. Now they have so much access to what these prospects are doing, that he's going to have narrow focused, because it will be hard at times.
Yeah, I want to follow on that quickly because I had they had a showcase at the complex that Perfect Game used to own here about an hour from where I am in Rome, Georgia, like about a week ago. And I went out there and I was talking to some of the kids. They're 14 years old, and you got some of the top players in the country. But I was listening to the parents, right? And I don't have a child like that. You are in such a good spot because you grew up in a coaching family. You played. You understand the pitfalls and some of the do you have to sometimes check? I almost say check other parents, like in general, from a coaching standpoint, when you deal with even when your kids were younger, just to make sure that their kids don't feel the pressures because you sit there and as a fly on the wall I was listening to parents talk and they know their kids stats and it's like people in LA arguing when I lived there over what car someone else drives. Is that something that you when you're from a coaching standpoint, Matt, you're talking to parents about a lot just to make sure that those kids 13, 14, 15 aren't feeling that? I'm sure you did it with your own son, but a lot of kids aren't that lucky where they don't have parents with that experience, right?
Kind of crazy when you talk about the money and the travel and the money that these parents put in and how early colleges are recruiting or offering scholarships. It is gotten a little bit kind of ugly, if you will, as far as these putting into it. So that there's a lot of pressure on the kid to sort of perform because I'm dollars. Our vacation money is now all of a sudden going into your travel baseball and the ship to sort of justify all of the money that we've put into this, and it creates this on the kids is like you're 14. I mean, it's hard. You may get a scholarship offer you get because it justifies all the money that you've spent traveling around the country as a 12 kid. I think yes, Casey. I think we need to remind parents and let them play. If it's great to enter them into tournaments around the country, and maybe it motivates them to work harder because they see what's out there and how good the talent really is. A big fish in a small pond, and you all of a sudden you get exposed to what the country motivates kids to really get after it. But I think putting this undue pressure on them, the money that they've spent, they need you to get a scholarship or play pro or get. It's parents that don't really, I guess, have maybe the perspective or that I've been able to have. They need to know that look, if he's good enough, he'll get a scholarship. They'll find him. You don't have to go to every single event, every single weekend, sort of the services to give him the videos.
Mm-hmm.
And,
right.
So I guess to answer your question, I want to. Sometimes I bite my tongue and don't say anything. But people that I know that it'll be okay if little Johnny doesn't have an incredible. All is lost, and I think sometimes that can happen.
They're not a stock; they're your child. I got one more quickie I want to let on the way out. It's rare, even for a player, for their team's own broadcaster. They could be nice, have a conversation, but to really matter to a level where there's a relationship, it's kind of weird. Like all of us being in baseball in different ways, like we all feel like we knew Vince Scully. Yeah. I mean, when you hear about a guy like that, even as somebody who came in on how much is there a reverence as a player that you even could feel that was different for him than anybody else in the game?
You hear, I would watch back tape of my bats or whatever against the Dodgers, and out of some balls that I, or home runs that I hit against the Dodgers. But to hear him tell you, for me, was like, oh my gosh. First of all, how did he know that? He's telling stories nobody else knew. And secondly, the fact that he knows that, Vince Scully, the Vince Scully, and some of the nice things that he said about me, I was like, oh my gosh. And so even just seeing the tributes and then watching him, some of these fact that he did it by himself and the way he just carried a broadcast by himself and could talk and position and tell you what's going on in the game, but still have you sort of engulfed in these stories, individual player on the other team, and all the research and knowledge that he had every team. I think you have more appreciation for that as you get older. You maybe dabble in media a little bit, or in your case, are fully entrenched in media to what he was able to do for so long about all these different, and his appreciation. You hear these stories about him calling journalists and thanking them, and these Vince Scully stories about the human being. It really is sort of a one of that was kind of way up here in his everything. And so I was sad last night. I appreciate that he got not lived, but it always is sad, I guess, when you hear that he passed away and heard from him, or at least I haven't in a while. It does kind of make you sad. So just reminds you of what an awesome life and story, and just back to like when he started, how long ago that was, to all the way until recently as 2016 in my mind.
It's crazy. And I'll say this and I'll let you run. I in the world of Twitter, as you were bringing up, social media is so terrible. It's like a cesspool. Think about how many things that everyone agrees on and is positive about. Like there aren't many things in life. You go to the last few hours, there's not even the snarkiest, angry. No one, no part of the country, no race, no religion. There's no one. That's like how you live the life of a gentleman, right?
No doubt.
I mean, a really, really small category. Of course, I put Matt Holliday in there. Matt, appreciate you, bro. Appreciate it. And I'm glad we could finally work this out. I mean, we were star-crossed trying to get this, and good to see you with Wi-Fi. Good for you.
I know, and like we could talk in real time. Like it wasn't like.
I appreciate you, bro. Enjoy the day. Thank you.
All right. See you,
there he is. Matt Holliday joining us here on Unfiltered as we continue our podcast. You can get me at Casey Stern, or maybe I'll have a cooking show because I got you on this episode in the kitchen. Make sure to like it and subscribe to all the videos. My kids are screaming to go to the pool, so therefore let's go swimming. You're not invited. Bye.